Hi, I'm Nishtha, and today I'll be discussing the project that and the progress we've made so far on the role of laugh in patient-provider interaction. So, as I said earlier, I'm a second-year medical student at Drexel, and I have been working on this for the past summer as part of the MSSRF program. Next. I think there's some delay. So I mostly discuss what the role of laugh is in patient-provider interaction in order to try to help us develop a laugh-enabled chatbot in the future. So a lot of this focuses around therapy and the context of laugh in therapy. So a lot of the caregivers that we use in this study are caregivers of older adults. And as a caregiver of individuals with chronic conditions, they often experience a very high emotional burden and levels of psychosocial distress. And thus, therapy is actually very highly indicated for them. And the therapeutic alliance is that bond between the therapist and a patient, which can actually also be defined by the amount of humor used in this alliance and in sessions. And a simple way to measure the amount of humor in a session is by the amount of laugh. While other studies have focused on the use of humor in caregiver therapy, they focused on qualifying humorous anecdotes or surveying how patients felt about the use of humor during humor intervention studies, or classifying laugh, but no quantifying studies were done. So in a study done in 2000 by Bethea et al. Did a qualitative analysis on the categorization of humorous anecdotes, which, while useful, may not necessarily serve our purpose in developing a chatbot. Then we had a transcriptional analysis conducted in 2018 by Zianigi et al. There were no relevant studies that I could find published between those 2 years. And that utilized Attardo's 1994 guidelines on the general verbal theory of humor. When we were initially conducting the study, we did use a lot of the guidelines published in this study, categorizing irony and sarcasm. But due to the time that it took, and this project was only conducted over the summer, we didn't continue with that, and we focused more on the laugh contextualization. So then in 2018, a study by Gupta et al., a different lab, not me, studied 814 laughter events within 330 sessions with 33 clients and 16 different therapists. And their categorization of laughter actually helped enable us in order to quantify it in our study. So the difference between their study and ours was that they linked it to client attachment and sentiment analysis. When they conducted the study, they discussed how cheerful laughs were associated with clients being more attached to the therapist or less attached to a therapist when, say, another type of laugh was used, which was useful, and they ranked each laugh by each category. Meanwhile, we chose a dominant laugh type and used that to quantify the amount of laugh used in each session to kind of do a more quantitative analysis rather than a qualitative analysis. And we also used their contextualization and added the amount of therapist laughter, laugh timing in relation to the laugh target, and reciprocity of laughter in a humorous incident. So we wanted to understand when a laugh was initiated, who initiated it, and what is the relationship of laugh to the statement that was funny. Things that will be useful to us in the grand scheme of chatbot development. So here I have a simple layout of how I found several of these studies using terms like caregiver, therapeutic alliance, humor, therapy, and laugh. And scanned through them in order to find these studies that talked about laugh categorization. A lot of looking at this found that several individuals looked at clown medicine or simulated laughs with clown doctors. So trying to get patients to laugh for 5 minutes or something like that to see how it impacted their emotions. And that was also a separate category that we needed to screen before finding the relevant studies to our own. And this is the code book that we developed and categorized each session of each therapy session and each laugh in this therapy session as one of these. So whether it was a patient laugh or a therapist laugh, whether that laugh was then reciprocated by another individual or not, the type of laughter, cheerful, polite, reflective, contemptuous, and nervous, which I will go into in future slides. The timing, so whether that laugh was before the laugh target, whether there's conversation between the laugh target and the laugh, whether it was in moment and while the individual was delivering the laugh target, they laughed, or whether that was following the laugh target. So they'll say the item that was funny and laugh immediately after. And then also whether this humor was patient-initiated or therapist-initiated. In some instances, we have the patient saying something humorous and then the therapist will laugh, but not the patient. So in that case, that laugh might be categorized as patient-initiated, therapist laughter, unreciprocated, and following laughter, if that was right after the patient said the statement. And then based on the context of the situation, it would be one of the types of laughter. And if you notice the colors, they are coded based on what study they came from. So a cheerful laugh is a laugh that occurs in response to pleasant emotion or a laugh target. So they'll say something that's a joke and it's more what we associate as a funny laugh or something that happens in a funny moment. Polite laughter is laugh involved in small talk with no clear laugh target. So here we have someone saying, anyways, I've taken enough of your time, and then the therapist says, oh, and then laughs before saying, well, thank you for sharing your experience. They're changing the topic here, and they kind of laugh as a segue. Reflective laughter contains verbal cues suggesting thinking or cognitive processes are occurring during laughter. So this might actually occur during a humorous anecdote. And then at the end, the patient makes some kind of reflection upon their experiences and then laughs. Contemptuous laughter usually contains some kind of disdain or hostility or disapproval towards self or others. So as we have self-deprecating humor, that kind of humor was typically classified as contemptuous laugh. And nervous laughter, so laughter to reduce emotional distress. Nothing funny will particularly be happening, but the patient might laugh because they are upset or they are confused, and they're just laughing in order to make it easier for them to say. So here you even have the patient saying, it hurts my feelings after laughing. So we got these transcripts from George Dennis, and we got 315 files. After removing the duplicates, there were 282. And then we checked if laugh was transcribed. So laugh was either a laugh or a chuckle, as you saw earlier in those examples. And that included 165 documents. So the initial articles that we studied for humor and laugh analysis were only 5, and we chose 2 from visit 1, 2 from visit 2, and 1 from an exit interview. And those were analyzed more in depth. I haven't included that analysis in this because we ended up discarding that portion of the study in order for the write-up, but it is a direction we can pursue in the future. And also randomly selected additional transcripts for laugh type analysis. 3 from visit 1, 3 from visit 2, 3 from visit 3, and 3 from exit interviews. So these transcripts were all classified by visit 1, 2, 3, and exit interviews based on the intervention being used. So this is like a group, no, it's problem-solving therapy intervention. So where the laugh was transcribed, we actually found further properties of each transcript. So several of them occurred over the phone, 47 of them, 53 were occurring over video, 65 were in person. The visit types, 37 were from visit 1, 77 from visit 2, 18 from visit 3, and 33 from exit interviews. And there were several, there were notable exceptions where there was a dyad present in 162 transcripts, but there were 3 transcripts where 3 individuals were present. So overall, this is kind of a summation of what our data looks like. I have prettier graphs later, but this kind of just shows you an overall of the properties of every transcript that contained laugh in it. So of the 165, we did this analysis. So based on the number of individuals, we found that the number of individuals involved did contribute significantly to visit length, but not the number of laughs. So while this might be just not a very strong finding, it is a significant result due to the statistics, but it is not a very strong finding because we don't have as many transcripts with laugh transcribed that have a triad of individuals. And visit 2 transcripts were also found to be longer than all other visit types except for visit 3, and the least number of laughs were contained in exit transcripts, which actually might be due to it being a phone visit. And based on the visit type, we found that in-person visits were significantly longer than video and phone visits, and phone visits contain significantly lower number of laughs than all other visit types, but the laughs were not significantly different between in-person and video visits, which is something interesting in the era of COVID and everything being online. Now, between those 17 transcripts that we did an overall laugh analysis of, this is kind of a summation of that data and some of our more significant findings. So I'll discuss them here. So we found patient-initiated humor was significantly evoked more laughs per visit than therapist-initiated humor. And sorry, I'm kind of rushing through this. We have a lot of data here, but I wanted to respect the time limit. Patient-initiated humor also significantly evoked more laughs per visit than therapist-initiated humor across all categories. And patient-initiated humor, so humor that was stated by a patient, significantly evoked more laughs per visit than therapist-initiated humor. And this form of humor evokes significantly more patient laughter than therapist laughter. So if a patient says something, they're more likely to laugh at it than a therapist. And we also found that unreciprocated laughs were significantly more common than shared laughs across most laugh types, excluding therapist-initiated laughs, therapist laughter, and all the listed categories. And here you can see more data on that. And then here we have shared laughter, where you can actually see that cheerful laughter was most common amongst shared laughter compared to all of the laugh types. And shared laughter was more significantly found following the laugh target than all other timings of laugh. And in all instances, cheerful laughter directly following a laugh target also appeared to be significantly more present than all other forms of laughter across both shared and unreciprocated laughs. And same across patient and therapist laughter, as well as across patient-initiated laughs and therapist-initiated laughs. So from this study, we were actually able to find that laughs are most frequently cheerful in nature and found directly following a laugh target in therapy sessions, and that phone visits have appeared to have a decreased impact on the therapeutic alliance measured as number of laughs as compared to video and in-person visits. Video and in-person visits also had a similar amount of laughter, suggesting an equivalence in the therapeutic alliance derived from laughter in both visit types. Non-introduction and non-exit visits, so visit 2 and visit 3, appear to be longer than introduction and exit visits. Exit visits also appear to have the least number of laughs, which may be due to a different caregiver or a different provider being present on the phone for that interview. Patient-initiated humor also appeared to evoke more laughs overall than therapist-initiated humor. And patients also frequently laugh more often in visits than therapists across all laugh types. Now we do have a few limitations because transcriber interpretation of laughter can vary across all of these studies, and the number of transcripts of laugh transcribed can vary. The number of providers in the study were also limited. So provider personality and their therapeutic style may also influence the use of humor and their response to laughter. And the problem-solving intervention, we didn't do a study on the difference in laughs between different interventions, although we could have done that analysis as well. And the study included transcripts that vary between mode of visit and visit type, so we attempted to do a significance difference for laughter variation on that. And limited time to conduct the study led to analyzing 17 of the 167 provided transcripts to yield 355 laugh events. So future work can be conducted and maybe should be conducted to expand the breadth of this study. And analyzing the role of laughter timing, type, and initiation can lead to understanding how laughter can be used in developing that laugh-enabled chatbot, as I discussed earlier, that can complement traditional therapy to foster a greater therapeutic alliance and reduce emotional distress for caregivers. Thank you. So do we have any questions?
Have a little clap. Great job, Nishtha. Did you guys have any questions? I think we have time for one or two. Yep.
I thought it was really interesting and how it can be used in chatbots, like what you have for your future aims. I was just curious to know if you found any literature that already was sort of exploring using laughter in chatbots or anything of that sort.
So I did actually look into that. We tried to focus more on laughter in therapy specifically. So while I looked into that, I couldn't find any studies that specifically discussed humor that was more natural or responding to someone who said something funny. So if I type in something funny in a chatbot, the chatbot won't know to laugh. The humor that's used in those chatbots are actually pre-programmed humor. So if there's a failure, that's the one that I most frequently saw when I did my research. Then the chatbot will say something like, "Uh-oh, I made an error," or something, and then laugh. But that's all pre-programmed and manually written in, as opposed to the chatbot being able to recognize the humor and laugh.
Right, yeah. So the reason I asked was that many of the participants in my study said that anything that the chatbot did related to sort of like human-like or even like was being too positive or something like that, they sort of saw it as fake and not like comfortable with it because that's sort of associated with like a real person, right? Like you analyze all of these things based on like therapist client interactions, but like I'm just trying to understand how it can translate to like chatbots and the future design implications of them, because the perception by the participants was like, it's okay if it's like a bit polite and that, but if it was like too polite, they sort of termed it as fake, which was interesting. So I was just curious to know if you found something on that terms or something.
So I think what you're talking about is like uncanny valley, when things are a little bit too close to home, but not perceived as real. So actually for the write-up, we did focus less on the use of the study for chatbots and focused more on the relationship for developing therapist guidelines for laughter. And in regards to using this for therapy chatbot, laughter is important in terms of understanding when a patient is saying something funny or is saying something seriously. So The chatbot would be more for them, a patient like venting or discussing their past week or their troubles. So if the chatbot can respond appropriately to that and notice when a patient is saying something seriously or not seriously and know when to laugh or take that as a situation that should be responded. Like if I say something like, oh, I'm just being stupid today, that's something that a patient might say, and the chatbot should know whether or not I'm saying that seriously or whether I should be addressing that further and being like, no, you're not, you do all this other stuff, or whether that should be addressed with a laugh and moving on to a different topic.